Hey, so we're back. And we're back. We're still in Muncie. Flights are starting to open up, looks like. Sending Shmuel here a couple weeks. For now, we are in Muncie again, which is fine. Baruch Hashem. And tonight, tomorrow, we've been waiting for the whole year, I know. The yahrzeit, Vshemesh. Tonight, second day Rosh Chodesh, first day tammuz. Boom. This project is actually pretty interesting. Works out that there's two really big Chiddushim of the Vshemesh. One that we spoke about before, and there's a little bit of some not so simple. Talks about the Levium, the role of Levium, and that they're supposed to nasa as avo no. They take away the sin, and how do Levium have anything to do with sin? If anything, Korach brings sin and brings some bad stuff. How does Levium get rid of the sin? So Vshemesh quotes Sefer Bris Menucha, the only source really as Makubal from the 13th century, doesn't really have any sources for it. And pretty wild idea that the Kohen would actually signal to the Levium if the person bringing the korban was not sincere with his tshuva. The Kohen Gadol would look, and the Kohen would look at the person bringing the korban. If it wasn't in a really tshuva mood, they would signal to the Levium, and Levium would change the song or change the pace of the song, and therefore, and once they see that the person doing tshuva, they would speed up the song away from Kabach, more whatever Fried, Akiva type of song, and Shalom Yisrael, which sounds fantastic, very interesting, and that's where Shemesh has this idea. The only big question is, it's not so simple that they had Karbanos singing at private Karbanos. Not so simple. We don't, the Rambam says it didn't take place. So I'm Farshim, they argue on this. We know that they sang at the Tzibar, Karbanos, they sang the Shir Shal Yom. They only sang the Shir Shal Yom, or they only sang our Rosh Chodesh, like today, holidays. So the idea that they would sing at private karbanos is not widely accepted. Machlokas in that. So that's one idea. Marva Shemesh has a pretty nice idea. I actually sent this idea to his rabbi in Beit Shemesh, who does this Levium choir singing. I told him this idea that Marva Shemesh, and he says, I don't know where you get it from. And the Bris Menucha is a sefer who brings this down, very Kabbalistic. Hal quotes him, Zohar, no sources for it, but that's one idea. The second, the major idea really is Korach. Um, what was the battle? We know that Yaakov davens, I don't want my name to be with this. And the Medrash that says the son of the moon didn't want to move, they want to come out if Korach wasn't dealt with. So what's going on here? What's the whole operation? What's Korach's fighting about with his people by himself? What's Korach going for? And the Marva Shemesh has different ideas where you have Chesed, you have Gvura, and you have this mix of MS or Tiferes. And usually, really, the world should have been, perhaps, with Gvura, meaning strict judgment, strict din, but the world can't really handle that. People sin, and we're not punished right away. Hashem gives us opportunities to learn from our mistakes, opportunities to do tshuva. That's the way the world works. Adam sins out of the gate. He's not killed right away. He's not killed. His ability to tshuva, and that's the way the world works. So you have Abraham of a man of chesed. You have Yitzchak, a man of gevura. Kedas Yitzchak, very strict, Yiras Hashem, and you have Yaakov in the middle. And Mar Hashem says this is the point where Yaakov doesn't want his name to be part of this situation. Yitzhar ben Kus ben Levi stops at Yaakov because Yaakov was opposite of that. Korach wanted Gevura, and Yaakov is the balance of Chesed and Gevura, of Tiferes and Emes. The other idea of the sun and moon didn't want to come out. We know the famous Gemara where the moon is, you can't have, Hashem creates the sun and the moon. The moon says you can't have two kings, one crown, two crowns, two kings. So Hashem says, make yourself smaller. And the truth is, We go by the moon for Chodesh. We go by the moon more when it's nighttime. We talk about the moon, Shkia, what happens when that happens, Tseis. And the idea is there's more to gain by being humble. There's more to gain. There's something to being humble. Um, Someone who is could be great, could be wise, could be a big Talmid Chacham, does not make him the leader of community. Makes him a Talmid Chacham. That's fantastic. I have a Gemara question, I go to that guy. I have a Halach question, I go to him. But as far as being the leader of a community, being one to connect to people, being one to uplift people, that's someone who's an unav. And this idea is the crux of this battle of Korach. Ad Kedei Kach, Vshemesh, biggest chiddush, I think, the whole year is he says out of the 250 people who brought the Ketoris, and these were great people. Why? Because we're talking about people that were risking their lives for this. They knew the consequences. None of you, they died not too long ago. And Moshe says, if you're so sure that you're great enough, like Aaron, to bring Ketoris, you think you're great, there's one way to solve this. Bring Ketoris tomorrow. Tomorrow morning, this will be the test. And you expect the people to say, yeah, I'm not that confident. You know what? Maybe not. Let me back away. No, the 250 people that stood with Korach were so certain that they were on the level of Aaron to do Ketoris, they risked their lives for this test. And who is the 250? Vshemesh says, didn't see him, including Nachshon ben Aminadav, which is which is a big deal. What? Nachshon ben Aminadav would have anything to do with Korach? Korach the Levi, Korach standing up to Moshe, Korach with the troublemakers, Dasan Aviram, Korach getting people together riled up to go against Moshe. Nachshon, the great Nachshon, who jumps into the water. How could it be? How is this possible? And Moshe Shemesh says, well, it's very simple. Well, not so simple. Is that without anava, humility, you're not searching for ways to improve yourself. Someone who is great and someone who is fantastic, you're at a high level. And therefore, you don't have to really connect to people. You don't have to keep searching for Hashem. You're there already, which is fine. But the midah to be a leader is not that, is anava. That's the midah to be a leader. Because someone who is a real true anav is searching day and night, how could I be better? I'm doing a good job, maybe. I can do much better. And that is someone who is really into that. Someone who's always getting up. How could I learn better? How could I daven better? Get up a few minutes earlier. Talk in shul. How do I improve myself day in, day out with people, with Hashem, tzedakah, mitzvot, Torah? Every waking hour to improve themselves, that's an unav. And that's the midah that is lacking of Gevura. Gevura is only din, perfection, and this is something apparently the Nisim and Nachshon lacked. And this actually is very consistent because Nachshon comes to Kriyas Yamsuf, he jumps right into the water. He is so sure of himself. He's so sure of himself, and he was right because he survives it. He's so sure of himself, he causes the Yamsuf to split. He goes into the water, starts swimming in there. He's about to drown, and the water splits, and that's the gevura. That's the trait of Nachshon, of no lacking of confidence, 100%. And this actually works in really well with how he's caught up with the 250 people that bring the Ketores. No doubts whatsoever. He is He is on the level of Aaron. He's as great as Aaron. He's as great as Korach. He jumps into the water. He's the leader of the great Shevet Yehuda. No problems. The only problem is that's not a leader. That's not a leader. That's a great person. But the leader is Aaron. Because Aaron, he's part of the ego, and Aaron doesn't want to do the avoda. Hashem has to pull him in there. They have to call him. They have to command him because he doesn't see it. My gosh, I was part of the ego. And maybe Korach is a bitter Talmid Chacham. Navin Avihu thought they're greater than Moshe and Aaron. Maybe Korach was a greater person. Maybe he knew more Torah. Maybe he was smarter. Maybe he was more distinguished. Korach goes into battle as Bnei Levi goes to kill the people that were part of the ego. So Aaron causes it. Korach has to clean things up. Maybe Korach was greater. The problem was to be a leader, to be the Kohen Gadol. Asher Evcharbo is going to be someone who's an Anav. So not just Aaron was chosen, but also the Kohen and the leader going forward is someone who's an Anav. That person is a leader, someone who is an Anav. We know that Yaakov was an Anav. We know that David HaMelech, he wasn't the first chosen. He was the last of the brothers chosen. And he spends his life um, dancing in front of the Aron. Someone who's not holding himself high, if anything, holding himself very low. And this is the trait that Aaron has, that Moshe has, and that the great Nachshon doesn't have, and maybe the great Korach doesn't have. Korach, perhaps, or not perhaps, he was a great person, but this area of anava, and this is the big chiddush that Marv Vshemesh has, that even the great Nachshon was part of the 250 people, and that's kind of the big chiddushim of this week, and yeah. And hopefully the neshama, hopefully we enjoy this message, and we maybe open up a sefer, Marv Vshemesh. A lot of shuls have it. Um, and hopefully in the Shama Shavan Aliyah, Kolomas Kaman at Din Halevi, Shama Shavan Aliyah. And with that, Shabbat Shalom.